Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for joining me again. Okay, so this is the fifth and final video in a series that I've put out trying to improve the gear selection on my 2014 Mercedes Sprinter. If you want to see just the procedure on how to change the gearbox oil, then click on this link here. That'll take you to a 2.5 minute video just showing the procedure. So this video is going to be more about what the procedure has been since the first thing I did, which was to change out that bush in the gear mechanism on the dash, which improved things no end. That was the biggest improvement out of everything I've done. Originally, when I got this van, it had done 256,000 miles and it had been a courier van. And even though it got good service history and on the whole it drove straight and true and was pretty good, the gear change was absolutely awful. Trying to get it into first, you had to really sort of ram it into first, and as you did, the reverse lights came on, and I didn't realise that until I fitted a reversing camera, and the reversing camera would come on when I was putting it into first gear, which it shouldn't do. It should only come on when the reverse gear is engaged. So that, along with a real crunchy grinding sort of going from first to second or third to second, I started to investigate and I found out that you could replace just this part inside the gear mechanism on the dash. Mercedes don't sell any individual parts to sort out or improve the actual mechanism on the dash mounted gear selector. They only sell it as a whole unit, but there's a place in Poland, I think it was, that sold just the bushes, which was really a brilliant part because it improved the gear selection outright. It was absolutely brilliant. Still wasn't perfect on this van, but I think on most vans it will be very good. Then I found that even though it was greatly improved, it was really drivable, really nice to drive. Occasionally the reversing camera would come on, and I think it's just because how worn the other parts of the gear mechanism were. So then I replaced the gear mechanism itself as a whole. I found a really good low mileage one for sale on eBay. I then replaced a weighted mechanism and also the gear linkage cables, and since then it's been really good. So then I also replaced the gear oil, the gearbox oil in the manual transmission, and I replaced it for Mercedes specification straight from the main dealer. Just said I needed gearbox oil. They gave me 4 litres of gearbox oil, and I changed that out, and it still wasn't perfect. I mean, I don't know whether it's ever going to be perfect. The van has now done 276,000 miles, so you know, it's probably about as good as it's ever going to get without replacing the gearbox or getting the big gearbox, what do they call it, getting the gearbox reconditioned, getting a reconditioned gearbox put in, because second gear is sometimes still a bit notchy. And I mentioned this to a friend of mine. He's got an MX-5 and he's on an MX-5 forum, and they suggested to somebody who got a crunchy gearbox to replace it with this MT-90 by Redline, which is a manual transmission gear oil. And so I tried that, and that's been in for a year, but to be honest, I didn't really see any improvement. In fact, I found it not as good as the original Mercedes-Benz gear oil. So I've just done a change of that, and I think the problem with that Redline gearbox oil was that it's quite thick, and so it made, when the van was really cold, and in England it does get really cold, it's a beautiful sunny day today, but it's about 1 degree outside, so, and when the van was cold and the gearbox was cold, I found it really quite stiff to get into first and second gear. Once it warmed up, and when we were driving on the continent, we took the van on a 3-month adventure through France, Spain, Portugal, and then we went back into Spain and up through Andorra and the Pyrenees, which was absolutely incredible. Just a beautiful, beautiful place to be. And the van was brilliant, absolutely excellent, no hiccups, nothing at all. And it seemed to work better, that gear oil, when it was much warmer as an ambient temperature outside, so it wasn't having to start from cold or near freezing. When it was just starting at, you know, sort of 20-25 degrees, it was absolutely brilliant. You know, it was fine, but it still got a little bit clunky going around the hairpin bend in the mountains. So what I've done just recently is I've done an oil change. So this is the procedure now. Talk you through that as it goes. And I've replaced the performance, if you like, gear oil with the standard Mercedes-Benz normal gear oil. Yeah, it's working really well. So I would say that, I mean, people might have their own opinions on engine oils and gear oils, things like that. I did an engine oil change as well at the weekend. But I just go to the main dealer now. I find the prices are pretty reasonable. They do a service pack as well. But that's all done now. So I took it out yesterday for about half an hour and it's driving absolutely wonderfully, which is really, really nice. So this is the procedure now on changing that gearbox oil in case you wanted to do it yourself. It's a really easy job. You only need really 2 sockets, which are hex, which are like the Allen key sockets, a 14mm and a 17mm. This is the procedure for changing the gearbox oil in a manual transmission Mercedes Sprinter. Find these 2 plugs. You'll need a H14, which is for the fill point, which I'm doing now, and a H17 for the drain point. So undo the fill point. Van's on a bit of a slope, so I'm getting a bit of a dribble of oil coming out there, but you might not. And then loosen off the drain plug. This is the H17. When it comes out in a pretty good flow, so have a container underneath ready to collect the oil as it drains. On the drain plug there's actually a magnetic piece in the middle to catch any filings and keep them, rather than having them suspended in the oil causing problems with the gearbox. They magnetize to the plug, so give that a wipe, make sure that's nice and clean before you put it back in. Put it back in, get it nice and tight, and then you're ready to refill with the oil. For the oil you need about 3.5 litres of gearbox oil. I just went to Mercedes main dealer and they gave me 4 litres of their original gearbox oil, and to put that into the actual gearbox I'm using this syringe. This one's by Sealy, but you can use anything similar. And then I'm just pulling the gearbox oil into the syringe, ready to transfer it from the bottles into the gearbox itself. Now the gearbox oil isn't that thick, but it's quite dense, if that makes sense. So it takes a little bit of sucking up into the vacuum of the syringe. But once it's in there, we're back under the van, feed the tube from the syringe into the fill point on the side of the gearbox. And what you want to do is push the gearbox oil into the gearbox and just do it as much until it starts to dribble out, and then you know it's filled. And then you're tightening back up that H14 bolt or plug, and that's it. We're pretty much done. Just wind that up nice and tight like the drain plug, and that's it. That is a renewal of a manual transmission gearbox oil for the Mercedes Sprinter. So I'll put a link right here. This is to the entire gear series. There's 5 videos in all, and this is the final video replacing the gearbox oil. And yeah, it should run like a dream now. Like I say, we took it through 5,500 miles in the summer in 3 months through Europe, and it worked a treat. So no dramas, no issues. So if this series of videos or this video has been helpful, then please give me a thumbs up for a like, subscribe, or just check out the playlist of those 5 videos. They're a series, and I'm sure if you're having any issues with the gear selection, on a Mercedes Sprinter. But yeah, if you got anything from it, if it's been helpful, give me a like and check out the rest of the videos in this series. You can also subscribe. Going to be doing brake overhaul and also changing the oil in the rear diff, things like that. Just little maintenance videos on the Sprinter. So if you want to subscribe, then please do and make me really happy. And I hope you have a great 2025, and I'll catch you again in a video really soon.